Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, where history is told through tiny paper treasures. In today's video, we're diving deep into the fascinating story and current market value of one of the most intriguing stamps ever issued by the United States, the 5-cent 1942 stamp commemorating Chinese resistance to Japan during World War II. This blue stamp, officially known as the China Resistance Stamp, features two powerful portraits. On the left, the unmistakable face of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States and symbol of democracy. And on the right, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, often referred to as the father of modern China. The design boldly includes the map of China, rays of light representing resistance and hope, and a key date in world history, July 7, 1937, the day when the Second Sino-Japanese War began. Issued in 1942, this stamp was a powerful symbol of unity between the United States and China against a common enemy during the height of World War II. It was designed to emphasize the shared democratic ideals and the mutual struggle of two nations, one rising from centuries of imperial rule and another defending its values on the global stage. The quote beneath Lincoln's portrait reads, "Of the people, by the people, for the people," echoing the principles both nations sought to uphold in the face of tyranny. But let's talk about what you're here for, the stamp's value today in the collector's market. Many people are surprised to learn that this small piece of paper can hold a significant value depending on its condition, rarity, and demand among philatelists. The 5-cent China Resistance stamp was printed in large quantities, but surviving mint-condition copies, especially those that are perfectly centered with clean perforations and rich blue color, are highly collectible. On average, a well-preserved used copy might fetch between $1 and $5 US. However, an unused mint-condition version with original gum and no damage or discoloration can sell for anywhere from $15 to $40. If the stamp is graded extremely fine or is part of a historical cover, such as one mailed during wartime with censorship markings or diplomatic relevance, its value can skyrocket to over $100. Even more astonishing is the interest this stamp holds in thematic collections, especially among collectors of WW2 postal history, U.S. China relations, and stamps depicting historical alliances. Dealers and auction houses have observed a growing demand in Asian markets, especially in China, where Dr. Sun Yat-sen is held in reverence. This cross-national interest makes the stamp even more desirable and keeps its value relatively stable or increasing year by year. Some graded examples in auction houses like Heritage or eBay listings have been seen going up to $150 when slabbed, certified, and pristine. Now let's look at what affects its value the most. Firstly, condition is key. A stamp with no tears, no creases, and sharp corners commands a higher price. Secondly, centering is crucial. The more symmetrical the design is within the perforations, the more desirable it becomes. Thirdly, color plays a big role. A bright, rich blue with no fading is far more valuable than a dull, faded specimen. Lastly, gum condition matters in mint copies. Collectors prefer stamps with undisturbed, original gum. Another fascinating factor is historical context. This stamp was released at a time when the world was at war, and postal services were integral to maintaining communication and morale. Letters bearing the stamp from soldiers to families or diplomats to allies have immense historical value. If you happen to own such a cover, especially dated and postmarked during wartime with censorship labels, you could be holding something worth hundreds of dollars, particularly to historical document collectors. Now, a little secret many collectors don't know. There were several color shade varieties and plate differences in printings. Some versions are slightly darker, others more vibrant. While not officially cataloged as major variations, some specialists in the U.S. WW2 era stamps do collect these subtle differences, adding another layer of interest for keen-eyed philatelists. If you are lucky enough to find one with a printing error, such as a shifted image, misperforation, or ink smudge, that could raise its value dramatically, even into the thousands in rare cases, especially if authenticated. So, is the 5-cent China resistance stamp worth money today? Absolutely. While it may not make you a millionaire overnight, this stamp offers both cultural and financial value that grows over time. It's a beautiful intersection of political history, wartime alliance, and philatelic artistry. For beginner collectors, it's a great entry point into mid-20th century U.S. issues. For advanced collectors, finding the perfect specimen becomes a rewarding hunt. And for investors, it holds potential due to the rising interest in historic U.S. China postal relations. To conclude, if you come across this stamp in an old collection, never ignore it. Preserve it, study its condition, and consider getting it appraised by a philatelic expert. And remember, stamps are more than just old paper. They are windows into our past. Stories of courage, diplomacy, and human connection sealed in miniature masterpieces.
Next up, the red 5-cent Airmail stamp. This small yet powerful piece of postal history symbolizes an era when aviation was not just a technology marvel, but a crucial part of national identity, communication, and wartime strategy. Today we'll uncover everything from the history of this stamp, the aircraft it features, the postal services it transformed, the designers behind it, the production details, philatelic impact, collector interest, value in today's dollar market, and even stories of how it connected continents during its circulation period. So sit back, relax, and join us for the most detailed, longest look at the 5-cent U.S. Airmail stamp on the internet. Let us first place this stamp in its proper historical context. The 5-cent Airmail stamp you see, in its distinctive red color, was issued in the post-World War II period, most prominently in the late 1940s and early 1950s. This was a time when air travel had transitioned from a daring adventure to a dependable mode of transportation, especially for mail. The plane depicted on this stamp is a 4-engine transport aircraft widely believed to be modeled after the Douglas DC-4 or a similar airliner, which was used for transcontinental and international mail flights. The design captures both the power and grace of mid-century aviation, a gleaming silver bird slicing through the skies, rendered in deep red ink, symbolizing urgency, speed, and precision. Why 5 cents, you might ask? During the mid-20th century, 5 cents was the standard postage rate for domestic airmail within the United States. This rate was carefully calculated by the Postal Service to balance operational costs with accessibility. In the era before email, texting, or instant messaging, letters sent via airmail were the fastest way to reach loved ones across vast distances. Whether it was a soldier writing home, a businessman sending contracts, or a mother mailing a birthday card to a college student in another state, the 5-cent Airmail stamp played a crucial role in connecting lives. The stamp's design is simple yet bold. It features the word Airmail in capital letters, the denomination 5 cents prominently displayed, and an illustration of a plane in flight with 3 visible engines in motion. Below it, the words U.S. Postage are printed in a block serif typeface. The red color was not just an artistic choice, but also a functional one. It made the stamp easily distinguishable for postal workers handling airmail versus regular first class or bulk mail. Efficiency, after all, was at the heart of airmail service. Now let's dive deeper into the story of airmail itself. The United States was the first country to establish airmail as a regular government service. It all began on May 15, 1918, with the very first airmail route from Washington, D.C. to New York City via Philadelphia. The planes used were rudimentary, often open cockpit biplanes flown by daring pilots like Eddie Rickenbacker and Charles Lindbergh. At that time, mail delivery by air was considered experimental, dangerous, and uncertain. Crashes were frequent, weather was a major risk, and aircraft reliability was low. But slowly, with perseverance and the advancement of aviation technology, airmail became a cornerstone of modern postal services. By the time the 5-cent airmail stamp was issued, the system had evolved into a sophisticated nationwide network with standardized routes, scheduled flights, and integration with railway and highway post offices. The planes were larger, safer, and faster. Mailbags were carefully sorted and loaded onto aircraft that crossed the country in hours instead of days. For the public, airmail was no longer a novelty, it was a necessity. And for philatelists, these stamps represented not just postage, but progress, adventure, and innovation. But let's return to the physical stamp itself. Produced by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the 5-cent airmail stamp was printed on white paper with red ink using intaglio printing technique, a high-quality engraving technique that gives the stamp a slightly raised texture and ensures its long-lasting detail. The sheets were issued in large quantities and millions of copies were circulated. However, not all of them survive today in mint condition. Stamps that remain unused with full gum on the back, no creases or tears, and sharp perforations are the ones that command the highest value in the collector's market. Speaking of value, how much is this stamp worth today? This is one of the most frequently asked questions, and for good reason. While the stamp is not considered extremely rare, its value varies greatly based on condition, variation, and historical usage. A common used copy might sell for 10 to 50 cents, but a pristine, mint-condition stamp, especially one with perfect centering and full gum, can be valued between $2 to $10 US. Blocks of 4 in mint condition, plate number blocks, or full sheets can command even higher prices, sometimes over $50, depending on the specific edition and market demand. Specialist collectors also seek out first-day covers, also known as FDCs, which are envelopes postmarked on the first day of the stamp's official release. These are often decorated with cachets, artistic imprints related to the theme of the stamp. A 5-cent airmail FDC in excellent condition, especially with a hand-painted or rare cachet, can sell for $15 to $100 or more if signed by aviation pioneers or postal officials.
Next up, the 5-cent Czechoslovakia flag stamp. A piece of paper no larger than a coin, yet it carries the weight of war, liberation, resistance, and hope. This is not just a stamp. It is a statement, a salute, and a solemn remembrance wrapped in patriotic ink. Issued in the year 1943, during the height of the Second World War, this stamp is part of a remarkable series known as the Overrun Countries series. The idea behind the series was simple but profound: to honor and stand in solidarity with the nations whose independence and sovereignty had been overrun by Axis powers. And in that spirit, the 5-cent Czechoslovakia stamp flew proudly, not just across mail routes, but across the hearts of millions. The stamp features the national flag of Czechoslovakia, fluttering boldly in the center, surrounded by deeply symbolic imagery. On the left, an eagle with outstretched wings representing liberty. On the right, a woman, likely representing justice or victory, holding a sword and laurel wreath. The name of the country, Czechoslovakia, is printed in bold red letters beneath the flag, and the value, 5 cents, stands firmly on both lower corners. Let's step back and understand the context. In 1938 and 1939, Czechoslovakia was carved up and occupied by Nazi Germany. First came the Munich Agreement, which gave Hitler the Sudetenland. Then, in March 1939, the remaining territory was invaded and split. The Czech lands became the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia under direct German rule, while Slovakia became a German-aligned puppet state. Overnight, a democratic republic with a rich culture, vibrant cities, and proud traditions was dismantled. The world watched, and the United States, while not yet in the war, remembered. Fast forward to 1943. America is at war. The Allies are fighting across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. And on the home front, stamps were being used not just for postage, but for messaging, as mini posters, rallying cries, and reminders of why the fight mattered. The Overrun Countries series was born out of this atmosphere. Each stamp in the series honored a different nation that had been invaded by Axis forces: Poland, France, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Yugoslavia, Albania, Austria,
Denmark, Luxembourg, and of course, Czechoslovakia. These stamps were deeply emotional for immigrants and descendants of those nations living in America. For Czech and Slovak communities in cities like Chicago, Cleveland, and New York, this stamp was more than ink. It was acknowledgement. It was validation. It was hope that their homeland was not forgotten and that freedom would return. Artistically, this stamp is a triumph of engraving. The flag is printed in full color, blue, white, and red, using advanced multicolor intaglio techniques that were incredibly difficult to produce at the time. Remember, most stamps then were single-color prints, but this series demanded more. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing, working with designers like Charles Chickering and others, meticulously created these stamps using a combination of line engraving and offset lithography. The result? A vibrant, detailed stamp that stands out even today. The frame, rendered in dark blue, gives the flag a stage to wave on, and the intricate shading and symmetry make it a favorite among philatelists. So what is this stamp worth today? That depends on condition and type. A used copy, common and canceled, typically sells for under $1. However, mint condition copies, especially those with original gum, clean margins, and strong centering, sell for between $3 and $10. But where it gets interesting is in full sheets, plate blocks, or first-day covers. A first-day cover postmarked in Washington, D.C. on July 12, 1943, featuring the stamp and a cachet, which is a printed illustration and explanation, can fetch between $15 and $50, depending on its art, condition, and rarity. Some FDCs feature hand-painted cachets by known artists, which are highly collectible. Collectors also seek the full Overrun Countries set. A complete set of 13 stamps in mint condition can sell for $30 to $100 or more depending on quality. Even more valuable are error prints. Though rare, a few misregistered color prints or plate flaws exist, and if authenticated, they can command several $100s at auction. Stamp dealers and auction houses sometimes sell these in patriotic stamp-themed auctions, especially around wartime anniversaries. Beyond money, though, this stamp holds a deeper value. It represents the voice of a free country, honoring those who lost their voice. It symbolizes international friendship and resistance against oppression. The message of the 5-cent Czechoslovakia stamp is not locked in the past. It echoes even today, in an era where freedom, sovereignty, and unity are still being tested. Many collectors frame this stamp not for its financial worth, but for its emotional one. Some include it in World War II collections, others in thematic flag collections, and some in pages dedicated solely to anti-fascist resistance. Teachers use it in classrooms, historians cite it in exhibits, veterans keep it as a reminder of what they fought for. It's not just a collectible, it's a connection between nations, generations, and ideals. The flag at the center, the white, blue, and red, waves not just for Czechoslovakia, but for every small nation whose voice was nearly silenced. And in that stamp, the United States used its postal power to say, "You are not forgotten. Your flag still flies. Your people still matter." So the next time you come across this stamp, maybe tucked in a dusty album, stuck to an old letter, or listed online for a few dollars, remember what it represents. The weight of war, the power of ink, the strength of design, and the unbreakable bond between nations standing for liberty. Thank you for joining me on this long journey through the story of the 5-cent Czechoslovakia stamp, part of the legendary Overrun Countries series. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. This is Stamps Old World UK, and here, history always delivers.